My name is Mia Carter, and at 24, I never thought I'd be standing on the brink of graduation day, feeling more like an outsider than a celebrated scholar. From the outside, our family looked like a picture-perfect snapshot of suburban Pennsylvania life. My father Thomas, in his crisp suits, my mother Linda, with her constant air of gentle concern, my sister Zoe beaming in every family photo. But behind the scenes, the truth was far from that glossy image. Zoe, 2 years younger, but always the center of their world, was the golden child, the one they poured all their hopes and money into. I was the afterthought, the girl they said had promise, but was better off blending into the background. Even as a child, I could see the difference in the sparkle in their eyes whenever Zoe walked into a room. At birthday parties, she got brand new bicycles, while I got secondhand sketch pads from the discount bin. Every time I raised my voice to protest the obvious, my mother would hush me gently. Mia, your sister needs this more, she's special. I learned early to swallow my protest to paint a smile over my hurt, because nothing I said could compete with the endless list of Zoe's achievements. It was a silent betrayal that built like a pressure cooker in my chest. I still remember the day I overheard my parents talking late at night. I was just 16 then supposed to be asleep, but I couldn't stop listening. My father's voice was low and firm. We need to focus on Zoe. She's the future. Mia? Well, she's always been more of a dreamer. My mother didn't even protest. That was the night I realized no matter how many straight A's I got, or how hard I worked, I would never be enough for them. But deep down, a spark refused to die. I decided then that if they wouldn't invest in me, I would invest in myself. I worked late nights at the corner coffee shop to save up learning to find strength in every dismissive look and offhand remark. My best friend became my grandmother Martha, the only one who saw through the carefully constructed lies of my family's favoritism. She would tell me, Mia, don't let their blindness define you. Your worth is bigger than they can ever see. Her words became my shield against the endless comparison to Zoe, and every day I held on tighter to the dreams they thought were too big for me. As I stand here cap and gown in hand, my heart is heavy with a mix of pride and rage. Graduation should be a celebration, but it's hard to celebrate when your own family only sees you as a shadow. Still, I know this is just the beginning. The memories of those early betrayals didn't fade as I stepped deeper into adulthood. They sharpened into painful clarity with every milestone I reached that my family refused to see. Even as a child, I had noticed the unfairness of their choices, but I was too young then to name it, too desperate for scraps of approval to fully confront it. By the time I entered high school, the differences had grown even starker, each one like a slap that left bruises only I could see. Zoe would come home to elaborate science fair kits that cost hundreds, while I had to beg to borrow library books for my art projects. Mom's excuse was always the same: Zoe needs this more. She's the one with a future in politics. She said it so often that I almost find a crack in their perfect narrative of Zoe's superiority. I joined every business club, took on every advanced math course, and even landed a part-time job to pay for my own extracurriculars. I thought if I could show them my worth through sheer effort, they would finally see me. But their eyes were always fixed on Zoe. Even at school events, where I won awards for my marketing projects, they never stayed long enough to hear my name called. They had already decided I was a footnote in Zoe's success story. And as much as it broke my heart, part of me began to believe them, until the night of Zoe's biggest betrayal. I was 17 and I had just won a regional business plan competition, my first real taste of recognition. I was buzzing with excitement, thinking maybe, just maybe, this would be the moment they'd finally see me. But when I came home certificate in hand, I found Zoe crying on the couch. Between her sobs, she told my parents that she had spent weeks helping me with that business plan, that it was really her idea all along. And my parents believed her. My father turned to me with a cold finality I'd never seen before. "We raised you to be honest, Mia," he said, his voice slicing through me. "If you can't even give credit to your sister, how can we trust you with bigger responsibilities?" My mother just shook her head in disappointment, her silence worse than any words. That night, I realized I wasn't just fighting for respect anymore. I was fighting for the right to exist in a family that refused to see me as anything but Zoe's shadow. And in that moment of betrayal, something inside me hardened. I stopped begging for their attention. I stopped trying to prove myself to people who would never care to look. From then on, I started investing in myself, not for their approval, but to build a future where I was the one holding the pen to write my own story. I worked twice as hard, taking on extra shifts at the coffee shop, tutoring underclassmen in math, saving every penny I could. The more they tried to erase me, the more determined I became to create a version of myself that they could never deny, even if they chose never to see it. That betrayal didn't break me, it forged me. So here I stand, diploma in hand, and I refuse to let their blindness define me any longer. My grandmother's words echo in my heart every day. Their vision is too small to hold your greatness, Mia. Build your dreams anyway. I know I'm not alone in this struggle. Too many of us have faced the sting of being overlooked, of being told we're not enough. If you've ever felt like the invisible one in your own family, if you've ever had to fight for the right to be seen, let me know in the comments. Share your story, because I know the pain and the power in finding your own worth. And if you want to stand with me on this journey of turning pain into purpose, don't forget to like and subscribe so we can keep growing together. I carried the weight of that betrayal with me into every part of my life, letting it fuel me rather than break me. In the weeks that followed Zoe's claim to my ideas, I learned the sharpest lesson of all: the people closest to you can wound you deepest. But that night, after the worst of it, I sat with my grandmother Martha in her small kitchen, the scent of chamomile tea wrapping around us like a protective cocoon. She didn't offer the false comfort of telling me everything would be okay. Instead, she held my hands in hers, her lined face resolute as she said, "Mia, the world will always have people who see only what they want. But you see beyond. You know how to make something out of nothing. That's your real power. Don't let them take that from you." Her belief in me became my shield. Grandma Martha didn't have money to give me. Her retirement barely covered the bills. But she gave me something more precious: permission to dream, to believe that I had a right to build something of my own, even if no one else believed in it. From that night on, I treated every slight from my parents like a spark to light my own fire. My father's words, "We raised you to be honest," Mia, echoed in my head, not as a rebuke, but as a challenge. I would show all of them, that honesty and independence weren't weaknesses. They were my greatest strengths. I began to spend every waking hour outside of class, working some days at the coffee shop, others tutoring kids who needed help with math. I taught myself business strategy from library books and online courses, my fingers tracing the pages late into the night. I stopped waiting for approval and started building something they couldn't ignore. I told no one, not even Zoe, about the online community I was growing, for my marketing ideas, small businesses that needed a voice, a champion. My grandmother would watch me with quiet pride as I poured every spare moment into this work. "You're laying the foundation for something they can't tear down," she said one rainy night when I nearly fell asleep at her kitchen table. "They'll try to deny it when it's done, but the truth will shine brighter than any lie." Her words stayed with me as I put in those long hours, as I poured every dollar I earned into small investments for my fledgling idea. While Zoe went to fancy internships arranged by my parents' connections, I was learning how to turn rejection into resourcefulness. And for the first time, I realized I didn't want their help. I didn't want their money or their approval, because everything they touched came with the price of their expectations. I would build something that was mine alone, no strings, no apologies. In those quiet hours of building and dreaming, I started to see the truth: the betrayal had been a blessing. Because if my parents had given me what I'd wanted, support, recognition, I might have spent my life chasing their acceptance instead of forging my own path. In their refusal to invest in me, they had given me the greatest gift of all: the freedom to become my own champion. Still, the bitterness of their favoritism never fully faded. There were nights when I lay awake thinking of the childhood moments that felt like small cuts. Christmas mornings with practical gifts for me and lavish toys for Zoe's school plays they didn't bother to attend, and the constant question of why I was never enough. But every time those memories threatened to pull me back, I reminded myself that I had outgrown the need for their validation. My grandmother's faith in me was more than enough to carry me forward. And slowly, as the months turned into years, I began to see what she meant. Because while they poured their resources into Zoe, expecting her to be their legacy, I was quietly building something that didn't need their permission. My determination wasn't loud or showy. It was the quiet, steady resolve of someone who knows what it's like to be overlooked and refuses to be invisible any longer. And even as the anger still burned in my chest, I let it become the fuel for something bigger. As I moved closer to graduation, my heart was no longer set on proving them wrong. I wanted to prove myself right. My story wasn't about revenge, it was about reclaiming the space I'd always deserved. If you've ever felt like the one left in the shadows, like the person no one thought would rise, you're not alone. Share your story in the comments below, and let's build a community that sees what others can't. And don't forget to like and subscribe so we can keep this journey going together. Let's show them all what they missed. The quiet resolve I'd nurtured for years became unshakable by the time I reached my second year at university. While Zoe settled comfortably into her dorm life, funded by my parents' generous checks and endless attention, I moved into a cramped studio apartment with peeling paint and a broken heater, the only place I could afford. My days were a relentless cycle of early classes, late-night shifts, and stolen hours of studying. Even when exhaustion clawed at my mind, I refused to give up. Every cup of cheap coffee, every tired sunrise from my bedroom window, became a testament to my decision to carve out my own place in the world. I thought I had finally reached a point where my sister's manipulations and my parents' blind favoritism couldn't touch me. But betrayal has a way of finding new cracks to slip into your soul. It was Zoe who shattered the fragile peace I'd built. She showed up at my apartment one evening, her eyes red-rimmed with fake tears, clutching a folder of my carefully curated marketing proposals. "Mia, I'm so sorry," she began, her voice trembling. "I accidentally took your business plan draft to my internship meeting. They thought it was mine, and now they want me to present it at the statewide entrepreneurship showcase." My mouth went dry, the world tilting on its axis, as her words sank in. She was taking everything I'd built from those lonely nights of dreaming and hard work, turning it into her own stepping stone. My pulse hammered in my ears. "You're not actually going to do it, are you?" I asked, my voice calm, despite the fury simmering underneath. Zoe hesitated for only a heartbeat before her expression hardened. "Mia, this could open doors for me, real opportunities. And you're not even sure if your idea would work in the real world. You're too busy trying to survive to ever make it happen." She spoke the words with an almost casual cruelty, as if she didn't realize she was tearing open wounds that had never fully healed. My heart splintered. I realized then that she didn't just see me as her sister. She saw me as the cautionary tale she'd been taught to rise above. My parents, of course, believed her version of events without question. When I confronted them, hoping against all hope that they would see through Zoe's lies, they dismissed me with the same weary sighs they'd always reserved for my antics. My father didn't even look up from his phone, as he said Mia Zoe's always had the potential to take things further. "You should be happy to support her in this." My mother's eyes darted away as she murmured, "Your sister's future is important for all of us." In that moment, something in me snapped. The betrayal wasn't just about Zoe's theft. It was the culmination of years of small slights, of being the afterthought in my own family. I realized they would never see me as anything but the background character in Zoe's carefully curated success story. But that night, as I sat in my freezing apartment, wrapping myself in the blanket my grandmother had knitted years before, I let the rage settle into something colder and more powerful. I wouldn't let them steal my light. My revenge wouldn't be loud or dramatic. It would be in the quiet, relentless pursuit of my own success, a victory so undeniable that even they couldn't rewrite it. From that moment on, I poured every ounce of pain into action. I refined my stolen plans, made them better, sharper, and more personal than ever. I networked in secret, finding small businesses that believed in me and my ideas. Each new partnership felt like a small rebellion, a defiance of the narrative they had tried to impose on me. And while Zoe paraded around as the golden child, I was building something real. something that didn't need their approval. My grandmother's voice echoed in my head each time I doubted myself. You're not just a survivor, Mia. You're a creator. Let them keep their illusions. You're making something they'll never be able to steal again. The betrayal still stung, but it had transformed me. It turned every dismissive word and every stolen opportunity into fuel. And while Zoe stood on stages built from lies, I was crafting my own platform, one they could never touch. If you've ever had someone try to steal your light to take credit for your work while dismissing your worth, I want to hear about it. Drop your story in the comments because our quiet victories deserve to be seen. And don't forget to like and subscribe so we can keep building each other up and showing the world exactly what it means to fight back. The betrayal didn't just motivate me, it transformed every part of me. I felt like steel forged in the hottest flames of resentment, each new challenge sharpening my resolve. While Zoe posed for glossy photo shoots and my parents crowed about her brilliance at dinner parties, I was never invited to. I was fighting battles they couldn't even imagine. I worked twice as hard, twice as long. My days were a blur of classes, projects, and late-night shifts at the coffee shop, while every spare moment went into building my business. My apartment, small, cold, but fiercely mine, became a headquarters of possibility. Each night, I'd collapse onto my thin mattress, with exhaustion burning through my bones, but I never let that exhaustion turn to defeat. I refused to let them have the satisfaction of seeing me give up. Even when money was tighter than tight days, when I had to choose between groceries and bus fare, I found ways to make it work. I learned to stretch every dollar like it was a lifeline. I bartered with local businesses for opportunities, offering free marketing consultations in exchange for mentorship and connections. My grandmother's voice was always in my ear, reminding me that even if the world tried to dim my light, no one could extinguish it completely. One night, after a particularly grueling shift at the coffee shop, I came home to find a stack of bills on my kitchen table that I'd been dreading. Rent, tuition, loan statements, it all felt like a tidal wave crashing over me. My hands shook as I calculated how much more I'd need to keep my head above water. The weight of it threatened to crack me open. But instead of breaking, I let it focus me. I promised myself that no matter how hard this got, I wouldn't let it end me. I was done being their afterthought. I would become my own priority. While Zoe waltzed through life cushioned by my parents' resources, I was learning what real resourcefulness meant. I discovered I had a knack for finding gaps and turning them into opportunities. I found businesses struggling with their social media presence and taught myself the strategies to help them shine. Each time I saw a client's face light up when their business grew, I felt something deeper than any hollow praise from my parents. It was the validation I'd been denied my whole life, earned not from family expectations, but from my own grit and determination. And while I was learning these lessons, Zoe was busy coasting on the stolen glow of my ideas. But she didn't know what it was to earn something with your own sweat and tears. She didn't understand that real confidence isn't handed to you. It's forged through every late night, every early morning, every time you choose to keep going, even when no one else sees. My business began to grow in ways I never expected. Word spread among local business owners. There was a girl who could make their products and services shine, who would fight for them the way no one else had. Clients began to trust me, to believe in me. Each new project felt like another crack in the wall my family had built around me, letting the light back in. And as I sat with these small victories, I realized something else. I didn't want their apology. I didn't even need them to admit they were wrong. Because every step I took, every deal I closed, every skill I mastered, I was building a future that had nothing to do with them. My grandmother, Martha, frail but unwavering, would come by my apartment every Sunday, bringing homemade soup and a warm smile that felt like a blessing. She saw what no one else did, that I was becoming the woman I was always meant to be with or without their recognition. And I knew that was my truest revenge, not the kind that screams for attention, but the kind that speaks in quiet, undeniable triumph. If you've ever been forced to fight for what's yours when no one else would stand up for you, I want to hear about it. Drop a comment below. Let's remind each other that our worth doesn't need anyone's permission. And if you're on your own journey of defiance and discovery, like, and subscribe so we can keep fighting together. Because the world can try to keep us in the shadows, but we were born to shine anyway. All those nights spent hunched over my secondhand laptop, those endless hours juggling work and study, had prepared me for this moment. My final year at university was nothing short of a battlefield, but I'd learned to thrive in the chaos. My business had finally become self-sustaining, no longer just a desperate bid for survival, but a true vibrant venture that spoke to my relentless will. I'd built relationships with clients who treated me with the respect and admiration I'd always yearned for from my family. Each new project felt like another small act of rebellion, proof that I was more than the forgotten daughter. While Zoe's social media was flooded with images of expensive brunches and weekend getaways, I was building an empire that couldn't be captured in a single photo. But nothing stung more than the knowledge that even now my parents still believed Zoe was the one with a bright future. They didn't know about the real meetings I was attending, business expos, entrepreneurship panels, and small business conferences, where my ideas were met with genuine excitement. Each time I was invited to speak, to pitch, to collaborate, I felt the scales tipping in my favor. And that feeling of finally being seen, if only by those outside my family, kept me going. The day of graduation arrived like a storm and a sunrise all at once. My apartment was buzzing with the energy of possibility, a stark contrast to the cold indifference that had haunted my childhood home. My grandmother arrived early, her hands shaking as she adjusted the stole she had embroidered for me herself. "For all the times they told you weren't enough," she whispered. "This proves you always were." As I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my cap and gown, I thought about everything it had taken to get here. The betrayals, the heartbreak, and every ounce of strength I'd found when there was no one to lean on. This moment wasn't just about a diploma. It was about showing the world that I was more than they'd ever imagined. When I arrived on campus, the air was electric with anticipation. Families crowded the quad, laughter and chatter echoing against the old stone buildings. My parents were already there, of course, fussing over Zoe's hair and making sure she was ready to be the star of the day. My heart twisted, but I refused to let them see the crack. Instead, I found a quiet corner and took a deep breath. Today was mine, whether they acknowledged it or not. When they finally noticed me, my mother's eyes slid over my simple dress beneath the gown, her expression pinched. "I'm glad you could make it, Mia," she said in that tone she reserved for obligations, not pride. My father didn't say anything at all, but I had long since stopped expecting their words to matter, because today I had my own. As the ceremony began, I watched from the wings of the stage, waiting for my turn to speak. Dean Harrison, a woman who had seen my growth and determination firsthand, stepped to the podium and began her introduction. "Today, we honor not just academic excellence," she said, her voice ringing out strong and clear, "but resilience and the spirit of those who forge their own paths when no one else will." This year, our student address will be delivered by someone who embodies these ideals, Mia Carter. My name echoed through the auditorium like a clarion call. I saw my parents exchange a look, shock and confusion, and Zoe's face pale as she realized this was not her spotlight to steal. As I stepped to the podium, my pulse roared in my ears, but my voice was steady. For those of us who've been told we're not enough, I began for those who've been overlooked, overshadowed, and underestimated. I'm here to tell you that your worth is not defined by anyone's refusal to see it. I stand here today as proof that no one else gets to write your story. The applause was thunderous, rising to fill every inch of that massive hall. I locked eyes with my grandmother, her smile bright enough to banish every doubt I'd ever carried. And for the first time, I realized that this moment of standing in my power was the sweetest revenge I could have ever dreamed of. My parents sat frozen, their forced smiles slipping away, as the crowd rose to their feet, not for Zoe, but for me. It was a triumph, built not on their approval, but on my own relentless belief. If you've ever tasted that moment where you rose despite the odds and made them all see what they'd missed, I want to hear about it. Share your story in the comments, and let's remind each other that we are stronger than anyone's doubt. Like and subscribe so we can keep this fire alive. Because together, we're unstoppable. As the ceremony ended, I felt like I was floating. The weight of years of being dismissed, overshadowed, and second-guessed finally lifted. My grandmother's proud smile was enough to erase every memory of indifference I'd ever suffered. Zoe, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her, approached me after the ceremony, her voice quiet. "I didn't know you were capable of all this," she whispered. I looked her straight in the eyes. "I was always capable. You just didn't bother to look." My words didn't carry the venom of anger anymore, just the calm finality of truth. My parents lingered awkwardly on the edges of the crowd, their forced smiles faltering as relatives and family friends gathered around me, offering congratulations. They had no more illusions to hide behind, no more stories about who was worthy and who wasn't. The truth was undeniable now. They didn't speak much that day, but I didn't need them to. My success wasn't theirs to celebrate, it was mine alone, built from nights of exhaustion and days of defiance. My grandmother slipped her arm through mine, steady and sure. "Let's leave them to their regrets, Mia," she murmured. "You've already won." In that moment, I realized the real victory wasn't the degree or the applause. It was the knowledge that I had never needed their belief in me. I had created my own worth, written my own story, and claimed my own power. As we left the auditorium, the sun was bright, the air electric with promise. I felt every inch of my journey in my bones, every heartbreak that had made me stronger, every betrayal that had sharpened my resolve. And I knew deep down that this was only the beginning. If you've ever had to fight twice as hard just to be seen, if you've ever turned someone else's doubt into the fuel for your own success, share your story in the comments. Let's stand together, a testament to the power of quiet triumph and unbreakable spirit. And don't forget to like and subscribe so we can keep telling these stories and proving that sometimes the greatest revenge is simply refusing to be overlooked ever again. Hey,